It's the beginning of the bowl season. It's Saturday, December the 16th. I know what you're about to say. You're about to say these bowl games are not worth the crap. Brian, we have too many bowls. I'm still going to talk about them. And I'm also going to challenge you to think that in about 6 weeks, there's no more college football. So in February, you're going to be missing college football. And if these games were on, you would watch them. I don't know why my nose starts itching every time I get on to the show, but I keep doing this, and I don't know, but I promise, maybe it's a nervous deal. Anyway, welcome to Clemson Football Live. We're not talking Clemson football specifically, but this is still Clemson Football Live. We're talking college football. I'm Brian. Thanks for joining me. I hope you've subscribed. It's free. It's the easiest way for you to support the channel without spending $1. Also, if you want to support on a monthly basis, there is a join button below the video. Unless you're on an Apple product, you may not see it. Anyway, so if my memory serves me correct, and I'm going to look at the bowl schedule right now, that at 11 a.m., which is exactly 1 hour from right now, the very first bowl is going to kick off. Now, I live an hour, I wish to a point, 4 hours roughly from Myrtle Beach. Now, the Myrtle Beach Bowl is the very first bowl to kick off, but technically the bowl is in Conway, South Carolina. If you know, you know. A lot of people says that Coastal Carolina is in Myrtle Beach. It's actually in Conway, which is about 15 minutes. Good Lord, it's like I got a rash. I don't know. From Myrtle Beach. So Conway's about 15 minutes from Myrtle Beach. The site is the stadium for the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers. So that's the very first game, and it kicks off, as I said, in an hour. Georgia Southern and Ohio will be playing one another in this ball game. And I'll go through the other bowls here, but I want to try to highlight some of the players who are going to be in the game, some of the players who will not be in the game. Now, if my memory serves me correct, the quarterback for Ohio, I think his name is Rourke or O'Rourke. This guy, he is not playing in the game. It's Rourke. I don't think he's playing in the game because he entered the transfer portal. I found out by watching some of the games this year on like the Tuesday and the Wednesday night games with the MAC and all of those teams, that this Rourke kid, his family or his brother or what, they all have ties to Ohio, the university, the Ohio Bobcats. And the kid, he's 195 of 307, over 2,000 yards passing, 11 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. He will not be playing in this game that I know of because he entered the transfer portal. So anyway, they will be missing him. Right now, Georgia Southern is a 2.5-point favorite in this game. I'll just quickly go over the schedule for Georgia Southern. I'm going to blast through these, by the way, just to kind of give you an overview. Chase Henderson's in here. Good morning from the hospital. Did you finally get those implants? Chase Henderson, a longtime friend of not only this show, but the Bobby Durkins show and supporter. Hey, folks, Chase Henderson is a member of the Clemson Football Live Club. It's always good to see Chase in here and his lovely sister, Parker. I call them the Henderson sisters, but they're both very manly men. Anyway, I'm glad you're here, my friend. Let's go through the schedule for Georgia Southern. By the way, Georgia Southern is in the same conference as Coastal Carolina, so it's kind of odd that Georgia Southern is playing at Coastal Carolina. It would be like Clemson playing a ball game at NC State, at Carter Finley. So this year, Georgia Southern beat the Citadel. They beat UAB. They lost to Wisconsin. They were at Wisconsin, lost 35-14. They beat Ball State. They defeated Coastal Carolina 38-28. That was at Georgia Southern. Then they lost to James Madison, big shocker, They beat University of Louisiana Monroe. They beat Georgia State, an in-state rivalry. They lost their last 4 ball games, though. That's what's kind of funny. They're 6-6 on the season, and they lost their last 4 ball games. 2 of them were close. The other 2 are blowouts. So they lost to Texas State by 21 points. They barely lost to Marshall by 5. They barely lost to Old Dominion by 3. And then Appalachian State just absolutely throttled them, doubled them up 55-27. So Georgia Southern, Clay Helton, former Southern Cal coach, is fired midseason a couple of years ago. Not even midseason, it was about 3 or 4 weeks in. They are a 2.5-point favorite over the Ohio Bobcats, who comes in, who's 9-3. So quickly going through here, Ohio played at San Diego State, lost 20-13. They beat Long Island. They defeated FAU. Ohio beat Iowa State 10-7. They beat Bowling Green, Kent State. They lost to Northern Illinois by 10 points. They beat Western Michigan. They lost to Miami of Ohio, a nice rivalry there, 30-16. Then they won their last 3 games against Buffalo, Central Michigan, and Akron. They finished second in the MAC East. So they'll be playing today, now less than an hour, in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. So it'll be interesting. I don't know a ton of information on both of these teams. I really don't. I'm not going to act like I do. But it's interesting. This is the first bowl game of the year. I thought about driving down today, but my son has his last flag football game of the season and at 12 o'clock. So, and then I just have it's the week before Christmas. I have so much stuff going, so I'm not going down to Myrtle Beach today. That would have been fun, though, even though the game is not that great. The truth is, once again, in about 6 weeks, we're going to wish we had college football, and we would take this game. So that's why reason I'm going over it. Got a bunch of people in here. Chase Henderson, you're crazy, man. That's crazy. Chase is being very creative this morning. Very creative. Oh, Lord. Anyways, I'm not going to repeat that. I'm not going to repeat it. It's not that it was terrible. It's just I don't have to explain anything. So, all right. So that's the Myrtle Beach Bowl. Let's go to the next bowl on the schedule for today at 11 a.m. Not 11 a.m. At noon in Atlanta, Howard versus Florida A&M. Let's quickly talk about that game. I don't know how they set these games up, but Florida A&M's 11-1 and Howard is 6-5. Florida A&M is a 6.5-point favorite. I really know nothing about either one of these teams other than, I think they're HBCU. And I think that Florida A&M, their head coach is former Clemson quarterback, Willie Simmons, but they're 11-1. I'll talk about Florida A&M real quick. They beat the former Fighting Deion Sanders Jackson State 28-10. They lost to South Florida 38-24. Then they won every game after that, beating West Florida, Alabama State, Mississippi Valley State. My memory serves me correct. That's where Jerry Rice went. They beat Southern. They beat Texas Southern, Prairie View, Alabama A&M, Lincoln, Bethune, and Prairie View. So if you go through their schedule, they won a lot of games quite convincingly. I mean, really none of their games were close that they won. So they had a close game with Southern, a closer game with Texas Southern, but overall they beat. And I mean, when they beat someone, they beat them. So Florida A&M, and then let's get over to Howard Bison. They were 6-5 this year. They started off the season with a loss to Eastern Michigan, 33-23. They beat Morehouse. They lost to Hampton by 1 point. They beat Robert Morris. They barely lost to Northwestern by 3 points. Harvard beat the crap out of them, 48-7. They beat Norfolk. Delaware. They lost to South Carolina State. I almost said Buddy Pugh, but I think he retired 27-24. Then they beat North Carolina Central and Morgan State. Right now, as I said, Florida A&M is a 6.5-point favorite. That game kicks off in Atlanta at 12 o'clock. You can watch it on ABC or ESPN Plus. All right. Now, let's go to the next game up. Now, this is the RNL Carriers New Orleans Bowl. Jacksonville State versus Louisiana. It's at the Caesar Superdome. It kicks off at 2:15. And Jacksonville State, I want to tell you this, folks. I'm going to pause here. I have rubbed my nose so much. My nose is not running, but it is itching. Maybe I'm having some type of, but I do this on a lot of my videos. I go and watch my videos afterwards just to see what I do and my tendencies. And I know I'll look off over here all the time. There's nobody standing here. It's just kind of like a thing I do. I'd kind of look back this way. I don't know why I do it, but anyway, I do. But I am going to be absolutely driven crazy how many times I've scratched my nose, because it's like I have ants crawling on it. So there we go again. But you remember the Saturday Night Live skit, and then it turned into Night at the Roxbury, doing their noses right there. Anyway, it's not that reason. I promise. I'm energetic, but not for that reason. Jacksonville State and Louisiana. Jacksonville State, former Rich Rod, former Clemson OC, then Michigan, West Virginia, Arizona coach Rich Rodriguez. He's the head coach down there. I don't believe that he has left. In fact, I'm going to look it up, folks. Sometimes I just do these videos, and I'll just look things up as I go, because yeah, he's still the coach there. He did so well this year. I wouldn't have been shocked if someone would have said, "Hey, Rich Rod, please come coach us." So, man, let's see. All right, so let's talk about this Jacksonville State team. They did a great job. This is their first year in FBS. And we know that Jacksonville State was the same team a few years ago, went to Florida State with former Clemson quarterback Zarek Cooper, and beat Florida State on that incredible last-second play. It was one of the best plays in years. That's one of those great upsets that if you make a highlight reel of the past 10 years of great plays in college football and stunning plays, that's definitely going to make probably the top 5. That was crazy. Jacksonville State started off really strong, and then the season will wear on you. Someone gave a great analogy a couple of weeks ago on my chat board. They said there are teams, and they were referencing Louisville, who they have enough gas for 10 games, but not 12. And, when you really think about that, a season wears on a team. Now, I know that I come out and I'm very hard on teams. I'm very hard on, and part of my deal is I'm just talking football. I'm being a realist. At the same time, it is the truth. Teams, they get wore down. And so this team, to be 8-4, and this is their first time in FBS, that is a major plus for them. Now, the Louisiana Raging Cajuns, they've kind of fell off the plane that Billy Napier had them on. Billy Napier probably should have stayed at Louisiana. Have you seen Florida's schedule for next year? He's definitely getting fired, and I'm just going to leave it at that. But let's talk about Jacksonville State. Once again, I don't know of any players who has transferred, or is there anybody who has died. I shouldn't joke about that, but you know what I mean. They're no longer with the team. Please leave it in the comments section. Let's see. I'll quickly go over the schedule for each team as I've been doing. Jacksonville State started off the season beating UTEP 17-14. They beat East Tennessee State 49-3. They lost to Coastal Carolina 30-16. That was in Conway, where the Myrtle Beach Bowl will be played here in just a few. Then they defeated Eastern Michigan, Sam Houston in overtime. They beat Middle Tennessee State. They lost to Liberty. A lot of people has lost to Liberty. Jamie Chadwell is rolling. Western Kentucky, they beat them. They beat Florida International. They lost at South Carolina 38-28. I was hoping they were going to win that game because they're the Gamecocks and their first year playing at South Carolina. That would have been funny. Anyway, they beat the crap out of Louisiana Tech, and then they lost to New Mexico State 20-17. And I mean, New Mexico State ended up 10-4 this year, so it's not like New Mexico State was absolutely horrible. So that's the Jacksonville State Gamecocks. Let's take a look at the Louisiana Ragin' Cajun. And this year, as I said, they were 6-6. This is a team who's been in FBS for quite a while now. So they beat Northwestern State. They lost to Old Dominion. They beat UAB and Buffalo. They lost to Minnesota only by 11 points. I was going to make a comment, but I'm going to keep that to myself. They beat Texas State. They lost to Georgia State by 3. They beat, South Alabama. They lost to Arkansas State, Southern Miss, Troy. So there's 3 games in a row that they lost. 2 of those games was by 7 points or less. And then they throttled their rival, University of Louisiana, Monroe. So both of these teams are coming in with a different background, with a different approach. Jacksonville State, as I said, here they are. This first year in FBS, they did quite well considering. I watched them play a solid amount of football this year. Really didn't watch the Ragin' Cajuns, but once I realized that Rich Rod is coaching Jacksonville State, if I could catch a game, I would watch at least some of it. And guys like him going into a place like that and really overhauling it and working it to its core, you can definitely see his experience at these big time programs and just experience overall. It's really good for Jacksonville State. Now, does that mean that he's going to go to, some fill in the blank Power 5 school and tear it up and bring them to greatness? No, but it's really cool to see him go somewhere like Jacksonville State and take all those years of experience where he has had success and impact them. Once again, Billy Napier was at Louisiana. I said that this Florida job was just not right for him, and I really didn't get the hire. I don't think he's a bad coach. It's just, anyway, I'm just going to leave it at that. So let's go. That game, once again, kicks off 2:15 today on ESPN. That is Jacksonville State against the Louisiana Ragin' Cajuns in the R&L Carriers New Orleans Bowl. All right. For some of you who are joining me right now, you're like, why are you talking about these crappy bowls? Just to revisit, in about 6 weeks, we're not going to have college football, and you would love to have these crappy college football games. So here we go. Next up, we're going to talk about the Avocados for Mexico Cure Bowl. Let's pause right there. What a terrible name. Give it a better name than that. Well, Avocados for Mexico is actually I know, I've seen their commercials. I've had their products. They're fantastic. What a weird name. It doesn't roll off the tongue. In fact, I feel like I need speech therapy after that. Miami of Ohio is playing Appalachian State. That's at 3:30 today in Orlando at the FBC Mortgage Stadium. It'll be on ABC, ESPN, and ESPN Plus. Let's talk about both these teams now. I actually saw Appalachian State in person this year when Coastal Carolina went up there. It was a great atmosphere. The people at Appalachian State was very, very kind. They saw my son in his Coastal Carolina garb and they picked at him, but it was fun. It was good. It was a good time. I'll put it that way. It wasn't, some of these people who are acting like jerks that you'll run into. So Miami of Ohio, they're 11-2 Appalachian State's 8-5. Let's talk about Miami of Ohio, who they played, who they won against, who they lost. So they start off the season playing against Miami. Now, in the preseason, I thought that was funny. Miami of Ohio playing the University of Miami. It was hilarious. Miami, Florida wins the ball game 38-3. Then after that, Miami of Ohio goes on a 6-game winning streak. They beat Massachusetts. They beat Cincinnati, Delaware State, Kent State, Bowling Green, Western Michigan. Then they lose to Toledo by 4 points. They beat Ohio, Akron, Buffalo, Ball State, and then they play Toledo again in the conference championship. And if my memory serves me correct, Toledo was actually ranked at that time. I can't remember right off the top of my head, but they got their revenge in the conference championship. So 11-2. I really don't know if there's any players who's hit the transfer portal for them. Everybody has a transfer portal player. But Gabbert, let me see. Brett Gabbert, did he play anywhere else? God, that name sounds familiar. I bet you he did. As long as he's been in college football, he's been in college football since 2019. That was his first year. So he's probably played somewhere else. 1,634 yards, 14 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Now, on the other side, Appalachian State has Joey Aguilar. I watched this guy play. He's a junior, 6'3", 220. I don't know if he's, once again, folks, I hate to keep saying this, but I'm not just going to sit here and watch the transfer portal. Hopefully, he's still playing for Appalachian State. If you don't know this, Joey Aguilar is actually one of the top passers in college football by stats. He's thrown the ball 428 times, completed 275 of those attempts, 3,546 yards, 33 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. I watched him in person. That guy is a fighter, and he can play football. Let's talk about Appalachian State. They're 8-5. They're second place in the Sun Belt, that same conference that Coastal Carolina plays in, Georgia State, Georgia Southern. So they beat Gardner-Webb 45-21, and then they played at Chapel Hill and took North Carolina. Yes, the North Carolina with Drake May and Omarion Hampton took them to double overtime and lost 40-34. They played East Carolina, beat them. They lost at Wyoming by 3 points. They beat University of Louisiana Monroe. Then they lost to Coastal on a literally last-second field goal. I was at that game. It was a fantastic game. Then they lost to Old Dominion by 7. Then they beat Southern Miss, Marshall, Georgia State, James Madison, and Georgia Southern. Now, let's pause right there. They lost by 6 points to North Carolina. They lost by 3 points to Wyoming. They lost by 3 points to Coastal Carolina, and they lost by 7 to Old Dominion. Now, at the end of the season, Troy played them in the Sun Belt Championship and absolutely dismantled them 49-23. Other than that, they're only a few plays away from basically being a one-loss team other than the conference championship. Well, they would be a one-loss team with the conference championship. So anyway, Appalachian State can play football. They can play football. Justin Parrott says Will Shipley will play in the Gator in the bowl game versus Kentucky. That's good. I'm glad he's going to play. Reading some comments here. Yancey Chapman, Brian, what are we going to do about this portal thing? Dabo ain't coming off with any of that money. That's a whole subject that I get so many people mad about. That's a different video. All I'm going to say is this. The transfer portal is supplementary. That's my approach to it. So if you need a player, you don't build your entire team off of it. You recruit very well. I agree with that approach. But going out and getting a supplementary player here or there is not a bad thing. It's not a way to build a team. But I did a video a couple of days ago that said I believe we're being played. That we know that he doesn't like the transfer portal. So recruiting someone and making an offer is two different things. I can make an offer, but recruiting you is like dating. You know, you put the time, you put the effort, you do all of that bunch of stuff, right? But, you know, going and asking out a girl and saying, "Hey, you go out with me," and she's like, "Yeah, okay," and then you never show up to the date. I think that's what we're doing with a lot of these recruits, and so, hey, it's his team. It's his team. He's slow to come around to things because he has to. I love Sweeney and I appreciate all that he's done, but I'm going to make this very bold statement. You can appreciate someone and still criticize them. And I have family members who probably does the same to me. And I have family members and friends that I love that I do the same to them. It doesn't mean that I don't love them or appreciate them, but talking about Sweeney, Sweeney's hard-headed. He's stubborn. And he's just because he's had success doesn't mean that everything that noodles around in between his ears is correct. It's taken him a while now for him to realize that you cannot fill your offensive coaching staff with a bunch of first-year guys. Unfortunately, he's firing one every year instead of just going in and doing an overhaul. And he has to come around slowly to things. So this reminds me a lot of Coach K when the whole one and done thing with the NBA and the NCAA went on. He was like, nope, I'm going to have players sign a contract basically that they're going to stay at Clemson, or not Clemson, at Duke for 3 years or whatever. And then he started having to watch other teams win national championships. And then that philosophy changed instead of just changing within the next few years. I love Sweeney, but that's how he operates. So just get ready for Tyler Grisham to probably be fired instead of this year. Watch him be fired at the end of next year. Don't be shocked when that happens. And, don't be shocked in the next 2 or 3 years if we finally come around to the portal instead of doing it now. Once again, my stance, we recruit solid. We're still not killing it at recruiting like we think we are. We're not. We're not at the level we were a couple of years ago, where we had a top 5 recruiting class. Now, maybe this year is a little different, and I need to look at the rankings again. But those classes with Trevor Lawrence, those classes with Deshaun Watson, we're not having those types of classes right now. And so you need to build a team. Well, I'm going to make it very clear because somebody's going to come in and not hear the words I'm saying. I have to explain it to you like you're 5, not all of you, but some of you. The transfer portal is not the way to build a team. I don't care who has went and done it. It's not the way to build a team. Recruit really well, establish those players, use the transfer portal as a supplement to plug and play certain players. There's my stance. Sweeney hates the portal. He hates NIL. He's made it very clear. I had someone reach out to me a few years ago, and I'm keeping their child's name out of it because they asked me to, but their child worked on the inside at Clemson, very close with the team. And I say child, but this person was in college or graduated now. And about the time that we started seeing major issues with the wide receiver room, the wide receivers were upset that they did not have the NIL deals, that their former teammates or maybe people who had been in the elite camps with them, who had been recruited, not even as highly as some of these guys were. They had these NIL deals and they didn't have them at Clemson, and it hurt their morale. And it makes sense if you look at that timeline. I told you something was going on. So I hate to say it, but it's going to take a while for Sweeney to come around. Justin Parrott says we're in the top 15 in recruiting right now. Yeah, we were like top 5 consistently, but we're not anymore. I think South Carolina might even be top 15, but I don't know. I'm not going to argue about that. It's just, that's my opinion on it. But I have to explain my stance, like, not to all of you, please don't take this insultingly, but there's a few of you in here, you only listen to me for about 10 seconds and then you start typing. So don't do that. The transfer portal is supplementary. It's supplementary. It's not the way to build a team for longevity. Recruiting really well is the way to do it, and then using the transfer portal to pick a player here, pick a player there to fill a gap. That's how you do it. And you're unfortunately going to have to come off the hip with some money to bring some of these guys in. So that's just how it goes. All right, let's get back to the bowl game stuff. So Appalachian State is a 6-point favorite, 3:30 ABC today in the Avocados from Mexico Cure Bowl. I definitely think, unless they have a bunch of injuries or something, that's definitely how you're going to win the game. I think that they would definitely win that game. Let's keep going. I'm going to speed up a little bit. Think about this one. At SoFi Stadium in Inglewood, UCLA is playing Boise State. 7:30 tonight, ABC. Now, UCLA, the last time that they were, I think, really good was during the Deshaun Foster days in the early 2000s. You're a Carolina Panthers fan, you know Deshaun Foster. I mean, my Lord, he ended up playing for that team with Jake Delhomme. They ended up, or Del Homey, you remember that joke. Ended up going to the Super Bowl, losing to Tom Brady, Adam Vinatieri, those guys. But they just can't turn the corner at UCLA. They're 7-5. Playing Boise State, they're 8-5. Dante Moore is the leading passer. He's not with the team anymore. He hit the transfer portal. I don't know where he's going to land. But this is crazy. I mean, think about being UCLA, and you can't leave Los Angeles. If you play Southern Cal, you're in Los Angeles. You go to a bowl game. We stay in Los Angeles. I think the only way that anyone from UCLA will see somewhere else other than UCLA in the Los Angeles area will be for them to either A, play an away game or transfer. So it's crazy. UCLA, there's rumblings, people's upset about, Chip Kelly and this, that, and the other, but I mean, I'm sorry. I don't know what to say. They are a 5.5-point favorite over Boise State. We'll see how that game turns out. And I do believe that this is the last bowl game of the day that at least I have on my list. Cal and Texas Tech in the Radiance Technologies Independence Bowl in Shreveport, Louisiana. Now, in the preseason, everybody was telling me that Texas Tech is going to be amazing. Texas Tech is going to be amazing. Texas Tech is going to be amazing. I have a book over here, Lindy's, that says Texas Tech is going to be amazing. Texas Tech is Texas Tech. How many times can I say it until they're 6-6? And I said, I don't know why everybody's, wetting their drawers over Texas Tech. But they did. Right now, California, both teams are 6-6. 3.5-point favorite is the Texas Tech Raiders. That game kicks off 9:15 tonight on ESPN. I'm just looking at Texas Tech's schedule. They lost to Wyoming. They barely lost to Oregon. So you could say, oh, man, they're playing decent. They lost to West Virginia. Not a very good team. They lost to Kansas State, BYU, and then they had the misfortune of having to play Texas right after Thanksgiving. They lost by 50. So I don't know who wins that game. California's an interesting team. I feel sorry for people who play at California or Stanford because there people don't care about college football. They care about the Niners, and that's it. So good luck to them. Well, folks, I just went through the bowl games for today. Y'all take care of yourself. I'll catch you later. And I'm getting ready to go watch my kid play his final football game of the year. Y'all take care of yourself. I'll catch you. You all be good as always. Go Tigers.